1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where two moms review the best and worst in children's programming, from Netflix reboots and YouTube shorts to Disney classics and Pixar blockbusters. We watch, you listen. Find out what you can tolerate watching for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids. Jay, he's 5, and Kenny, he's 2.
And I have 3 kids. Tony is 11, and my twins, Libby and Nate, are 8.
And today we are thrilled to be joined by Shehla Faizi, graphic designer, illustrator, photographer, and host of the I'm a Muslim and That's Okay podcast. Welcome, Shehla.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Shehla, do you want to tell us how many kids you have and how old they are?
I have 2 boys. My eldest is 10 and my youngest is 7.
Awesome.
And our kids are so adorable, aren't they? We'd like to tell a quick story, Shehla, about how awesome or occasionally awful our kids are. Because in addition to being witty and incisive pop culture consumers, we're moms too. And Shehla, I think you and I are in the same boat. We're both facilitating distance learning these days. Are you still distance learning? So we're at the end of the week here, and it's a little hard to come up with an adorable story for my kids. But they have been building an igloo in our front yard out of obviously snow, and that's been pretty cute to watch.
Oh,
but that's all
cute.
I've got this week.
That's sweet. At least you guys got snow. We got snow. It was not snow. It's a wintry mix, but it's Dallas. That's all we're going to get. And my kids were over the moon excited about it. And they were out in this sloshy little mess. And they loved it, every second of it. But, you know, I have to tell them that this is real. They unfortunately have only seen snow maybe once or twice.
Yeah, and nobody's traveling to see it this year, that's for sure. Deborah, my story this week is also kind of school related. So I've never done the private school admissions process before, but my oldest is aging out of his preschool. They go all the way through kindergarten, so he has to go somewhere next year. So we did his admissions entrance exams yesterday. And the cliche with private schools is that if you can get your older kid in, your younger kid is pretty much just whatever. It's not a stressful process to get your younger one in, which is a really good thing because immediately when we got there, like one admissions lady took Jay away and that was fine. And then the other one went to take Kenny and he just immediately started throwing crayons at her head.
Oh, no.
Oh, my. Oh, gosh.
I hope Jay realized he was carrying the whole enterprise on his shoulders.
Oh, that sounds pretty classic little brother.
Yep.
Well, we are talking in our screen time in the news segment this week about a Deadline article about how Common Sense Media is launching a streaming service. And you guys, this looks awesome. It's going to be vetted videos by like child development and education experts from all kinds of production studios, like things you would see on regular TV, to good stuff on YouTube. And even the ads are vetted. And then it's going to be organized in 3 different age groups, like little kids, 5 to 7, and then 8 and up.
I think it's to 12 from what I remember.
Right,
Okay.
8 to 12 for the last category, yeah.
I don't know about you, Shehla, but we really struggle. Our kids are around the same age. My kids are around the same age as yours. And my kids want to watch the worst stuff on YouTube.
That's true. That's true. I struggle that a lot, especially when you have 2 boys. They have the sort of like this mindset of action, action, action all the time. Or it's some, and this is new. This was not there like before, that there'd be gamers and they actually stream the content on various even TV channels. I think Nickelodeon started it, and I was surprised, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, they watch it on YouTube, but why isn't it on TV as well? And they're just mesmerized watching these gamers. And yeah, I mean, I get it. Nickelodeon does vet it, but it's never vetted online, especially when it's on YouTube.
Hmm.
So it's it's a tricky situation when you have like that kind of energy that wants something constantly entertaining. How do you really filter everything?
Yeah, I think this will be a really great and useful service. My question is, with older kids who are used to using YouTube, because my kids are still a little bit too young, do you think you'll get pushback for introducing a new service? Like they'll be able to sense that you want it too much?
Yes. Yes. Oh, most definitely. Oh, heavens, yes. Because my kids are a little older, so I used to adore it when they used to watch PBS. And I wish
Hmm.
that they would still keep watching it because there's a lot of good stuff. It's not that it's not entertaining.
Hmm.
I really love some of the stuff they have. It's good educational stuff in a very like fun way. It's not boring. So I wish they would keep watching it and they would switch back to it. But it's a hard transition to that direction. That's why I think I'm a little skeptical about how much this would work. A, for the reason that kids are used to being able to access their favorite celebrity. And I say celebrity because they're not traditional celebrities in the sense. There are these child YouTubers online. And they're like, oh, but this doesn't feature Ryan or Evan. I mean, Evan was the thing when mine were growing up. He
Yeah.
was the man, and they wanted to watch Evan and Jillian and, all of their shenanigans. So how am I going to get them to watch this? That I think is my first trepidation about this. I love the idea. I've been wanting this for a long, long time because I needed this when my kids were younger. They just didn't have. They had the alternative was YouTube Kids is what they had because I couldn't let them have free reign on YouTube.
Hmm.
But
That's
even
still a
then,
lot of
I'm not.
junk
I'm not.
con.
I'm not happy with how the content is there, but I don't know. I'm still not convinced that it's very age appropriate, even when they have the categories. I can create separate profiles, but I don't think that it's very age appropriate. And of course, the ads are always problematic. And even with these YouTubers, whichever you want to name it, the child YouTubers, there's a lot of pushing for products. Oh,
Hmm.
I bought this, etc., etc. Toy. It's so cool. It's pushing a product. I really don't need that. My kids have a bajillion toys. I don't need to buy them a bajillion more.
Right. And it remains to be seen. I know in times past we've used the Common Sense Media site when looking for shows and movies to review for the show. And often they will review something and say it's appropriate when it's not necessarily good. So I wonder if they'll bring that same lens to this short form
Yes, that and
video, which could also be a problem.
a problem. That's also the thing. It's a case of what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander.
Hmm.
And I know it's a really old saying, but that's the thing. There are different standards for different families. Even
Hmm.
I'm pretty strict about a lot of things, especially when it comes to language. I think that's my main, I guess, pet peeve about TV shows that the language most people would not consider harsh, but I'm like, I don't know if my 7-year-old should be exposed to words like, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, but things like somebody is stupid or a moron or things of those nature. I'm not crazy about that, but it does happen.
Hmm. And in today's media environment, particularly with streaming content, it's impossible to police all of it. It's
Mhm.
impossible to police all of it
Yes.
and have your kids feel like they're getting a normal experience, I guess.
Exactly. It is very hard. And I do laud the effort by them that it is definitely a good idea. I think my second, and this is not even a content issue, I'm trying to think how viable this is in the standpoint of a business. Because what they say is that they'll have really vetted content, A, and B, vetted advertising as well. That is only 7 minutes per hour per the entire hour. How are they going to be making money? Yeah, subscription is one thing, but really, the biggest money makers for places like YouTube is not even the ads itself. The ads come into play, but a lot of the products that they're endorsing is the second really big money maker for places like YouTube and stuff. Really, how is the business going to be profitable when they're working with restrictions? Is what I would really like to know, because I would hate for the business to start up, for the company to start up the streaming service, and then set themselves up for failure.
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I guess I just have to say I don't know how it will work, but I hope it will.
Yeah, I'm
I hope
definitely
so
going to
as
try
well.
it.
I really do.
Because maybe my kids are the perfect age because they haven't even really started the whole YouTube thing yet. So this could come online and I could just show this to them as if it's the only option.
Totally, totally.
Yes, that'd be great. That's fantastic. You know, I think that's if you can get away with it for a certain period of time, I think just go for it. I tried, it just didn't work out.
I'm just looking forward to Sensical. It's not out yet, but I'll be posting on Facebook as soon as it is.
So today we are talking about the new Pixar movie Soul, which just debuted on December 25th, 2020 on Disney Plus. It is directed by Pete Docter, who also directed such Pixar classics as Up and Inside Out. It has a 100-minute runtime, so just a hair over that magic number of 90 minutes that you know I love to see. It features tons of big name voice talent like Tina Fey, Jamie Foxx, Graham Norton, Questlove, and our second Felicia Rashad role in as many months, which we are very grateful for. Just to provide a very, very short summary, in an effort to return to life after his accidental death, a jazz pianist must encourage a new soul to find its spark or reason to go to Earth and inhabit a body. So there are very few silver linings to COVID, but one of them is that we actually get to watch and review new movies as soon as they come out instead of me having to punt and say that there's no way I will take a 2-year-old to a movie theater. So we're excited about that, and it's safe to say, based on our Twitter feed, that the internet loved this movie. And many responses were saying that it was not really a kids movie that grown-ups could like, but more of a grown-up movie that kids would also like, which just really piqued our interest, and we figured we absolutely had to weigh in.
Did we like it? Shehla, did you like it?
Oh, I would be the bad person to start with. I'm just going to do a short backstory
Yeah.
because here's the thing. My obsession with animation, any type, has been longstanding. And I really hold a lot of these full-length features to very strict standards. And the promotion of Soul has been going on for the past year. I was really excited about it for two reasons. Because the central character was a person of color. And I just, when it comes down to it, as someone who is a minority, we love it. We want to see ourselves. And please, I do want to, again, a disclaimer, I'm not Black. So I'm just speaking as someone who is a minority. But it doesn't matter. We do love seeing ourselves in the forefront. So it got me really excited. Second of all, I love jazz music. I do love it. And it was like, oh, this is my thing. This is something that I can look forward to. And here's the thing. I loved the visualizations of it. The visuals were absolutely stunning. There's no doubt about it. The visual, how everything was represented, how the main character was represented, and everything around him, it was fantastic. And even when he departs into the next world, everything, how it was created, everything was spot on. The graphics, the animation, everything was really great. I will not find any flaws in that. I get that the story has to appeal to a wider audience. But when you take a central character that is Black and you name the movie Soul, there's a certain expectation of it. At least I had a certain expectation of it. That this movie, even though it didn't have to be a Black story necessarily, or a story of the Black experience necessarily, but it did have to be authentic to the Black narrative. And I think that's where I was just more than a little bit disappointed. Let's put it this way.
Right, because it was essentially not addressed at all, right?
No, I like I said, I'm a very heavy critic, and a lot of my friends hate me for it. It's like, but you just watch it for the entertainment. It's like, no, it's like, this isn't. And the other thing that I think was something that, and it's not a problem as such, it's just that the plot itself was pretty complex. If I showed my kids 20 minutes into the movie, they'd be like, I don't want to watch this. Because there's a lot of heavy things going inside of it. So they'd be like, I don't want to watch this. Why am I? They'll be like all over the place.
I definitely agree with you on that front. I feel like with the early Pixar features, there was so much focus on the technological wizardry, like in A Bug's Life, how each blade of grass was so lovingly crafted, and in Monsters Inc., how like Sully's hair moves, and the water in Finding Nemo, and then all of a sudden, maybe it was around Wall-E, that Pixar suddenly thought that it had to also be responsible for the heaviest storytelling in all children's properties ever. And I'm sure it kind of speaks to my pandemic state of mind, but I wasn't there for it. I wasn't there to be taught that heavy a lesson about what constitutes a fruitful life.
I'm not even sure exactly if that's what the conclusion was. There was so many plots and subplots that sort of intermingled, and oh my God, I can't expect my kids to follow this when I'm really struggling with this. And I'm into heavy movies. I've always been into heavy movies that are mind benders. But even then, they generally do lead you to a very specific point that's made. And I felt that Soul could not do that very effectively.
Deborah, are you going to bring the sunshine?
I think I liked it a little bit better than the two of you did. But I was not prepared for, like you've said, the heaviness of the topic. And I think that's just because maybe it's just the time we're living in, but I don't want to be thinking about such heaviness as life after death and what is the meaning of life. But then, I looked at the list of old Pixar movies and I shouldn't have been that surprised because like Coco took place in the land of the dead. Onward has a dead dad. Inside Out is very literally, it's a cerebral movie.
I think if I had to compare two movies, I'm sorry I interrupted, Deborah.
No, that's okay.
They were trying to create an Inside Out with Soul.
Yeah,
Inside
totally.
Out, even though it's a very complex thing that they had tried to put together, but it was done very well. And the same, if you take the same vein, life after death, or the meaning of, or the purpose in one's life, also a very complex thing. There's no doubt about it, and it's different for everybody. And unfortunately, that complexity could not be simplified. And if you can't simplify it, it's not a kids' movie.
Right.
So, was it more for grown-ups than kids? Did you cry?
I was totally expecting to. I did not. But I do think it was more for grown-ups than kids. Like, I think to a certain extent, Pixar has consumed its own Kool-Aid. It really thinks it's the best at storytelling, and it just has to continue in this really heavy lane, which is kind of sad. I wish we could just go back to being impressed by how things look.
Yeah. Before we get into the animation, what did you think about the cast and the characters? This was an all-star cast. Even like little extras, like the guy in the barbershop was played by Daveed Diggs, was my favorite Hamilton star, who were standouts. And who did not stand out to you?
Go ahead, Shehla.
The cast was top-notch. There's no doubt about it. They played their characters very well. And you wanted to love them, except for, and I'm going to get flacked for this, for 22. I did not like 22. Even though she's central to the story, but I did not care for 22, even though I love Tina Fey. Please, has nothing to do with Tina Fey. It's just that she in herself, the character itself was like, this is not a very endearing character. Let's put it this way. And you don't have to be a cute character or even a nice character to be endearing. It's just that I was not crazy about it. But for everybody else, I mean, Jamie Foxx, who voiced Joe, and I think the person I loved the most, Dorothea, by Angela Bassett. She was fantastic. I loved her. I wanted to be her.
Yeah.
And they were all shining characters voiced by incredibly talented people. It just came together in a way that unfortunately, even with an all-star cast, I couldn't really get to it.
Yeah, the emotional connection wasn't there.
I got really emotionally invested though in Joe's plight. Like I really wanted him to be able to perform.
That's because you're a jazz musician.
I mean, I'm an
I
amateur.
wanted to see it too.
I love jazz and I play the piano, but I have no like aspirations. But I kind of was rooting for him to make it back to earth because I didn't want the plot of the story to happen. So that was a very disappointing ending for me.
I think the thing that I was also expecting was a really, really like a jazz number that really hits you right here.
Yes.
And I think they had two instances they could have done it, but there wasn't one that could become the focal point of the movie and really hit jazz music home. Like the audience would have been blown away by it. And I think they should have done that. They should have put that there.
Totally agreed. I would have liked to have a more earwormy musical number to take home with me for sure. Or keep home with me because I was watching this on my couch. Deborah, did you have any favorite characters?
I loved the like shaman character who was like on the ship that went in and out of the afterlife. Especially when you find out that he's like the guy twirling the sign on the street corner and he's in the zone.
Yes.
That was
He
hilarious.
was very endearing. Moonwind, I think that's who he is.
We talk a lot about animation and the look of movies, Shehla, but we don't really have any background in animation or illustration. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the animation. You talked a little bit about it, but were there any standout scenes?
I think there are two things that were very standout for me. And again, it's the level of detail that I don't know if you remember in the beginning when Joe is playing the piano, you can see the back of his hand. And it was remarkable. I've never seen this in an animated movie, but it showed to such accuracy his fingernails, which if anybody's ever noticed, a person who's Black, they have this wonderful contrast in their fingernails. And it literally pops out, but it's never been shown in a full-length feature. And that's the first thing I noticed, and I was like, this is amazing. They've done the homework when it comes to creating this character in a very authentic way. It's not just, he just has hands. That's not how it was. They created him with a lot of love when it came to how he was visually. The other thing that I found very entertaining were the characters of Jerry and Terry. And now, if you know that Jerry is not one Jerry, there's only one Terry, but there's many Jerrys. And these Jerrys are all 2D in essentially a very 3D surrounding. For anybody who's studied animation or who is crazy about animation like I am, achieving that is very difficult, but they did it. They did it flawlessly, that you had these Jerry characters that were basically line art in a very 3D world, but they didn't look like they were being cut out and put into they were blended into the 3D world, even though they were 2D. And I think that was spectacular. Like I said, everything when it came to animation and visuals was spectacular in this movie. if there's any animation student out there, they should watch it just to pick up how to create this world well or create characters well.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that would be my feedback when it came to animation.
I thought it was so clever when one of the Jerrys goes to Earth. He's like hiding in the street signs and he's like hiding in the walking guy on the crosswalk. I thought that was very
Yes.
clever and fun to see.
Deborah, do you want to give us your thoughts on the music?
I liked the music a lot. Wasn't sure what to expect. I guess maybe more jazz standards. But I thought that the band when they were playing was really good. Joe when he was riffing was really good. I thought it portrayed of like when he was in the zone improvising, it was very true. Like if you're ever playing something and you're playing it really well and you just kind of have like a little bit of an out of body experience, like a nirvana of sorts. So I liked the music a lot. But like I said, I like jazz. It's one of my one of my love languages. And I know jazz is not for everybody.
I would have loved to hear some jazz standards. It's the endless improvisational, self-indulgent jazz that I do not care for.
Shella, what did you think of the music? You said that you were a jazz fan.
Yes, and I think again, I'm not as hardcore as you, Deborah. I'll be completely frank about it, but I do enjoy it very much. And when it comes to jazz music, you can tell when it's from the heart. But the score was not something that was memorable. That I would say, oh, I would like stream it on Spotify and endlessly listen to it because when I have my playlist, I have lots of jazz, blues, all of these things in my playlist. This is not going to be one of them.
Mhm.
And I sort of like researched it. Again, a lot of my nerddom shows up when it comes to this. The music itself, the score itself was from what I had read, and this is a Wikipedia, so I'm not really getting into how authentic it is, was what is referred to as user-friendly jazz. And that's exactly what it was. This jazz was not really like hard-hitting jazz. It was something that could be universally accepted. I think that's what sort of gets to me is that they had something fantastic with it, but they sort of made it very generic. They could have done a lot more with when it came to giving it a little more heart or soul.
I think if we lived in a pre-Coco world where Pixar just didn't do music really in their movies, it would be a different thing. But we had Coco, which was this beautiful example of
Oh my
music
God,
being
I
used so
love it.
effectively.
I love Coco.
It really does feel like a missed opportunity.
One of my favorite moments from Soul, though, was when one of the students of Joe's plays the trombone solo in the stairwell.
Yes.
I thought that was a
Yes.
standout moment. Very
And
sweet.
that's the thing, the trombone solo, both of them. She did two solos. One was in the classroom. The other one was
That's
in
right.
the stairwell. They were good solos. Those were with heart. And I remember being touched by both of them. And I was like, this is so good. I love this.
But Joe's music didn't hit you that same way.
I wish I did like how his first, how he finally, when he makes his first improv concert with Dorothea was. I liked it. But again, that was not the star jazz number. That was just him showing her what he could do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping they'd have that one jazz number that would blow you away. Again, a lot of these things are just expectations just because of how I am. And it may be unfair because, not everybody looks at it that way. But when it comes to animation, there's certain things that separate an all right movie. It's fine for if you want to pass the time to a movie that you can't forget. You always go back to. I will always go back to Coco. It touches you in a way that you can't even sometimes explain.
So, thoughts on the length of the movie?
So 90 minutes, definitely my sweet spot for an animated movie. I know this was only 100 minutes, but I worry that it's a slippery slope. And before you know it, we're going to be watching like 3-hour Marvel length epics. And I am just not here for that.
No, I get that. And here's the thing, 90-minute sweet spot, I completely agree with you. It went on 100 minutes, people would be like, but it's only like 10 minutes. But what is the 100? Is it worth the 100 minutes? I was not there for the 100 minutes for this one. And my kids are not going to be for this one.
Mhm.
So whenever, the pandemic, we're over it, whenever theaters open up, if you're creating a movie that goes on the 90 minutes, I'm spending like maybe $100 at the theater. And my kids at the like 30-minute mark are like, no more, I don't like this. I mean, I'm not going to be happy about that.
You'd like to think that Pixar is such an established name that you could just trust them to produce something that you'd know your kids would find magical, not a stupid existential contemplation on the meaning of life.
I actually did hang in for the end of the credits, and there is a cute little Jerry bit at the
Aw.
very end of the movie.
I think I missed that.
You did. You got rewarded for your attention.
No, I'm usually really good about these things because, again, more than a little bit of a nerd, I'd be like, oh, there must be some like Easter egg somewhere. But by the end of it, I was like, no, man, it's too late, and I'm a grandma. 9 o'clock, let's head to bed.
So we like to think about what grown-up movie or TV show we would compare this to. This is kind of a hard example because it's almost a grown-up movie already. Deborah, do you want to start us off with an example?
I have a good one. Okay, so Bill Evans is one of the greatest jazz pianists, in my opinion. He played with Miles Davis. He had his own trio. He like invented modern jazz piano, basically, but he was a heroin addict and had like a terrible, terrible personal life and was all about the music. And he's like the opposite of Joe. And I watched this Bill Evans documentary a long time ago, but Joe's story really reminded me of this Bill Evans documentary. So that's what I would compare it to. The Bill Evans documentary is really, really sad though, but great music.
Is that its title? Bill Evans?
That's a good question. I didn't do my homework.
Shehla, how about you? Can you think of a grown-up show or movie that you would compare Soul to?
What came to my mind was, the one with David Bowie in it.
Oh, Labyrinth?
Labyrinth. Oh my gosh. It suddenly popped into my head. Again, not a real adult movie, but because of how fantastical it was to show that not afterlife at all or meaning of life. It's just that somebody's being stuck in another realm and needs to get back, that
Right.
sort of thing. And I think the other thing that I found that was interesting about Soul, it reminded me a lot about Freaky Friday, especially when they come back to Earth. And I was like, oh gosh, man, that trope's been a lot. Like,
We didn't even
it's
talk
I
about
think
the cat. Yeah.
yeah, like I know, man. I was like crazy about that, but hey, let's just do it for the fun, I guess. But like Freaky Friday, I guess if you had to put another one, like Freaky Friday, like body switching, that sort of thing.
That's a good one for sure. So, approximately 10 years ago, there was this show on, I think it was HBO, called Dead Like Me. Did either of you watch it?
That sounds super familiar.
All right, so it was a girl who died and she becomes a Grim Reaper, and she's like one of several Grim Reapers that lives on Earth, and it's her job to like escort souls to, or like
Right.
show souls the way to the great beyond, but she can never go there. Like the Grim Reapers don't go to wherever these souls are going. They actually just have to go through the drudgery of living a normal life. Like they still need to get jobs and have apartments and do every like crappy thing about being alive, but they also like have this second job of being Grim Reapers. So I thought about that a little bit. And then my second example segues really nicely into our second evergreen question, which is how would you cast the gritty HBO reboot? And Deborah, I think you're really going to like this one. There was a comedy a couple years ago called Selfie, starring John Cho and, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on this woman's name? Doctor Who, the Marvel movies. She has red hair. I'm hating myself right now. Amy Pond, what's her real name?
Oh gosh,
That
even
just
I can
happened.
visualize her, and
Yeah.
I can't get her name. Gosh.
I'm sure I'll like spit it out after the outro, but okay. So it's the two of them, and it's kind of a Pygmalion situation where John Cho is trying to teach her how to be like an actual adult human in the world, but she is like obsessed with social media and like she can't really function outside of being this really performative character. So I thought I would like to see them cast in the Joe and is it 22 or 23? What is even the
22.
number? 22
22.
in those roles, kind of like the student teacher, but with a funny, acerbic wit that John Cho can bring to it.
Karen Gillan is who you're
Yes!
looking for.
Karen Gillan, thank you. Deborah, do you have a pick for a gritty HBO reboot cast?
So I just Googled like actors who play the piano, and Halle Berry is one, and I think that she's kind of the right age. She's kind of the right age to play a female version of Joe.
I like it.
And in the gritty HBO reboot, she would be trying out for Kamasi Washington's band. And then I would have Wallace Shawn play 22 because he has a super grating voice and personality. So I would typecast him into that role.
I like it. Shehla, how about you? Can you think of anyone you would want to play these characters in a gritty alternate show? We'll give you a pass if you want one.
Yeah, I think so, because the only people I'm getting is, and literally, I would love, because of how he is, I would love to see Samuel L. Jackson as Joe. And, him, like really, going at it at 22. What's wrong with you? Like several curse words in a row.
I think that's really great. Do you think it was better when we were kids and kids' movies were just kids' movies?
I'm going to say no, it was not. Shehla, you brought up the fact that this is like the first animated movie starring a Black protagonist. And we had nothing like that when I was a kid in the 80s. I think for representation's sake, for just different types of storytelling, it's a lot better now.
I really, really wanted this. I really wanted this movie to be exceptional. And, it's not the first movie with a person of color as a protagonist. As we discussed, Coco as well, had a complete Latin American family. The whole Latin American experience was there. But the everyday, stories are generally never have a person of color. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really wanted this to be something that really stood out, because I had never seen anything like this when I was growing up. I think Aladdin was the only one, and that had a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. I can speak to that personally. I loved it. I mean, there was a time I could recite to you the entire movie word for word. I had seen it so many times, but it was a very problematic movie.
I have to ask, just because you opened the door to Aladdin, did you see the live action reboot? I was wondering if you would find it any less problematic, but...
That's the thing. Even though the original was problematic, there are certain things you don't touch, okay? You do not touch the legacy of the genie. You don't, okay? And just for that reason, no, they can't do this. They can't do it without Robin Williams. And it was not the perfect movie. The original Aladdin was not the perfect movie. But there were certain things about it that are so timeless that you can't do a live action remake of that and expect it to have the same kind of to it. Again, it all comes down to heart. So I did a hard pass on that one.
All right, the big question. Would you ever watch this movie alone voluntarily if we didn't make you watch it for a podcast? You can't shake your head. You have to say yes.
I hate to even say this, but no, unfortunately, I won't. And that's the real tragedy of it. I want to, but I won't.
Deborah?
I don't think so. How about you, Katie?
Kevin's my husband. He loves all the Pixar movies that I hate. So I have seen Wall-E a ridiculous number of times, even though I so dislike this movie. So I can confidently say that I will be watching Soul many more times, but I will never choose to watch it alone voluntarily. So I know we've been talking about it a little bit all throughout the episode, but let's just round it out with a couple seconds on whether or not we think this is a good movie for our kids. Mine could not sit through it.
My thoughts on this are a little bit more complicated than usual. Usually I'm like, sure, it's fine. No, it's bad. But this one, I think you should watch it with your kids if you're going to watch it, just because it deals with questions about like belief systems and the afterlife. And, you know, me, I'm not like a very observantly religious person. And so we just don't talk about that kind of stuff at my house. So I need to explain to my kids like what few and flimsy beliefs I do have, just so they're not getting like all of their religion from a movie like this. So I think this one you should probably watch as a family. I wouldn't let your kids watch it alone just because of that like tricky afterlife content.
Agreed. If they're paying any attention.
And that I think that's the one of the things that I found was also tricky in this movie. As a person, I observe religion. We have certain specific beliefs about the afterlife, but I have lots of friends who are atheists, and for them, the afterlife is a different matter altogether. So this it has a very specific afterlife-ish theme to it, very heavy to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be very problematic for parents with kids, especially young kids, when they see it, they'd be like, how would I be able to explain this to kids? Should they see it from the perspective of an outsider that doesn't believe in this? And then the whole thing about the soul itself is very religious centric, or at least spiritually centric. Those who are not even spiritual, it would be a very hard thing that, what do the kids get out of this?
And you're opening the door to a lot of tough conversations with your kids that, oh gosh, can we just stop having tough conversations already? Like, we just...
Not for a while, Katie.
I mean, my 5-year-old knows what impeachment is. Should we do ratings? We rate on a scale of 1 to 5, and you can feel free to do partial points as well. Deborah, you want to start us off?
Sure. I think mine is going to be the highest. I would give it a 4.
It was so beautiful. I would give it a 3.5. I mean, it was gorgeous to look at. Shehla, what do you think?
Same for me. I mean, I would give it a 3.5 for the visuals.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of It's My Screen Time Too. Thank you again to Shehla for joining us today. Shehla, where can our listeners find your work and your podcast?
Oh, thank you so much. You can find my podcast, I'm a Muslim and That's Okay, on major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even on Amazon. I didn't even know how I got there, but I'm there. And you can search me out. I do freelance graphic design, illustration, and product photography. My small itty-bitty freelance practice is called Creative Cookie Jar. So you can just type out creativecookiejar.com and I'll pop up.
Great. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out our website at myscreentime2.com. You can find us on Facebook to continue the conversation at facebook.com/myscreentime2. That's also where you'll find out what we're covering in our next episode if you want to watch along with us. You can tweet us with show or movie suggestions, article recommendations, or general comments. Email us at myscreentime2@gmail.com. Our theme music was composed and performed by me and my adorable children, and our podcast is produced by Katie. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV beloved by kids and tolerated by parents. Bye.
Bye.
Screen time, screen